Hello, my name is Laura Burbano. I am the admissions advisor for the Sport and Performance Psychology programs and the Clinical Mental Health Counseling programs. So thank you so much, Dr. Cox and Dr. Castillo, for joining me today. This is just a short conversation, and we hope that with your insights, we can sort of like gain more understanding, specifically for applicants as they just start this application process for the combined doctoral degree. So I have some questions for you too. So thank you so much again for joining me. So the first question is, can each of you explain from the perspective of your professional field why someone might want or need a counseling license and the mental performance consultant certification?
You want me to go first, Dr.
Yeah.
Okay. I go first because if an applicant is accepted into this integrated degree, then the first 2 years, they're going to be pursuing their master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. And then their second 2 years, they're pursuing their EdD in sport and performance psychology. For somebody currently in the field, what we are looking for is not just the interest in working with performers and athletes, but what we're learning is that most of the time, performers and athletes suffer mental health issues at the same rate, and sometimes because of their investment in performance at higher rates than the general public. And we're learning that if we don't have two sets of skills when we approach working with these elite performers, we often miss key indicators that would help us determine whether they need performance consulting assistance or whether they would need mental health or both. And so dually training these students helps us to identify, or helps them as they work in the field, to provide the most holistic care possible, knowing who they need to refer to.
It's really important, particularly as we start hearing more and more about sort of the continuum of mental health that athletes are experiencing, right? That all of us experience, particularly in high-profile situations and really elite level competition. We start to recognize a lot more that we're not just athletes are not just experiencing one side of their performance or another, right? We're not necessarily training people, and that dual degree doesn't essentially train people to do both things with the same person. But if you're not able as a performance consultant to recognize that this particular thing may be beyond either my competency, because this is not sort of my area of strength, or beyond what is appropriate to do in a performance consulting environment. And so really being able to recognize when something is or is not part of the relationship that you currently have with that performer, that really does lean into that dual degree quite a bit.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Castillo. So the second question is, Dr. Cox, how do you determine whether someone is a good fit for the counseling profession?
Yeah, it's hard to dial that in. We have some pretty objective measures that we use when we're evaluating their GPA in their former scholastic efforts, their essays that they write for us in response to their application, and then in our interview question. But let's talk generally about what makes a good mental health clinician in the field. The first thing I want to say is this is an unusual field. In most, I want to say, jobs or careers, you can go out to lunch with your peers and chat about that funny client that came in, or you can talk at the grocery store about clients that you have in common. But the people that we're treating as mental health counselors are the people that are hurting the most, the people that are at higher risk for hurting themselves, the people that have mental illness that is significant enough that it's impacting their lives and relationships, performance, careers. And we're hearing hard things, lots of difficult stories. And on top of that, because of our responsibility to protect those clients, we don't have conversations about that. I don't get to go to my partner or my peer or my best friend and say, I heard this horrible story yesterday. My heart is hurting for my client, and I got to share this with somebody. We don't get to do that. So somebody who is really meant to be a clinical mental health counselor first feels called into this profession. They have a strong sense of empathy for clients or for people who are hurting, but also good boundaries. Like they understand what to take on that is theirs to manage, and usually what is other people's. And we teach these things while you're here. More importantly, from my perspective, is that you have to have a pretty strong perspective about health and a pretty good emphasis on wellness and self-care, because you have to figure out how to tolerate a lot of that emotional pain that clients are talking about without really being able to work through it with many other people. The exceptions would be a clinical supervisor or somebody that you're consulting with that's already in the field. And I think for us, what makes a good applicant is not only those qualities and that drive or passion that I'm talking about, also that you're coming in with some idea of what you want to do as a clinician in the field once you graduate. If you were to come in and pretty much say, well, I heard it's just smart to also get a clinical education while you're getting your consulting certification, I would say you probably aren't a good fit for us. Because once you have this education, if you ever utilize these skills outside of your role as a counselor, you're actually functioning unethically and illegally. And we don't want to set people up for failure. So number one, you have to feel called into this clinical work and have some kind of an idea what you would like to do with it specifically once you graduate.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cox. So now my question for you, Dr. Castillo, how do you determine whether someone is a good fit for the sport and performance psychology profession?
I think a lot of what Dr. Cox said makes the same type of sense, right? Working in elite performance environments, high-level performance environments, youth performance environment, at any level, it really still becomes a calling, right? This is not the place that you're going to go work to make $1 billion a year because you're only working with the highest level professional athlete or the highest level corporate CEO. That's not what it is, right? What we're looking for, particularly in performance, is to help people that are functioning very well on their own reach that next level, to become elite, to really access their full potential. And so the ability to sort of be invested without over investing, right? Offer what you can, but know that your rightful place is behind, right? It's not in front of the curtain. It is way beyond the sidelines, to make sure that everything that you're investing is toward that individual's success. Not because you'll get a cool t-shirt or field passes or whatever that is, right? And sports psychology, sport and performance often suffers a lot from being what you would consider pretty sexy, right? It's a very cool thing to have a high level clientele and be able to market yourself in that way and to have that experience. However, right, as Dr. Cox said, this isn't something that you share. This isn't something that you get to put on your business card and say, hi, I'm Sarah Castillo and I worked with X and Y athlete. That again is an ethics violation based on a number of factors. Again, all of those things you learn, but the goal really is that you have some experience and you have a desire to not only understand what it's like to have to perform in a really highly competitive, highly outcome-oriented environment, and be able to do that with as much grace and as much sort of willingness to be on the sideline as possible, right? Rather than standing up and collecting that award, happy to just sort of remain in the background. I think, again, really getting past the idea that it just sounds really cool is one of the big things that we look at. I think another really important characteristic is to make sure that you're in it for something larger than yourself. So we'll have applicants that come in and really want to sort of contribute to the longevity of athletes in sport, or break through and really make sure that, you know, a particular segment of performers, young athletes that they've had experiences with, are really kind of picking up some sort of skill or talent that applicant has recognized they're missing. We have a lot of applicants that come in and have been coached for so long and recognize there's something I can do to improve the level of coaching that we're getting at these students. We have a lot of performers, prior performers that have come in and said, you know, there are a lot of things that I learned along the way. Had I known them and had I been challenged to figure that out ahead of time, that may have changed sort of the trajectory of my career. So I really want to look at hoping that we have applicants that sort of want to give back to their area of performance, to improve it, not just for themselves and their own personal careers, but for the folks that come after, for the performers that they're working with, and then the ability to kind of generate a little bit more effectiveness kind of trickling down. So if I work with one coach, that one coach is going to touch, you know, 50 to 60 athletes in a single season, depending on where we're at, right? If we're talking about football, 85 to 100. So if we can make an impact at the right levels, how does that impact all the way down?
Thank you so much, Dr. Castillo. So the final question that I have is, can you offer some insight about how the two of you work together to determine whether a candidate demonstrates these qualities and behaviors during this application process?
I think one of my favorite things about being in this program or directing the CMHC program at UWS has been the joy I get at working with Dr. Castillo every day. You just heard her talk about what it is to have a passion for the field. And I think we share that. I have a passion for my field. She has a passion for her field. And we have a passion for performers. So together, we really want to design rigorous, thoughtful, applicable courses so that the folks who come in really have the best opportunity to make a difference in the world, in whatever world that they're working in. That concretely means that Dr. Castillo and I are planning courses together, that we are thinking about texts and textbooks that complement one another, that we are engaging in processes and procedures that are usable and translatable to each other's fields. And that's the same kind of thing we're looking for our applicants and students to do. How do they think about integration? How do they think about holistic wellness? How are they demonstrating when they come in as applicants that they're thinking about both sides of this coin and how both sides of these coins come together to make somebody better overall? The more an applicant can describe, even from their maybe naive understanding, the importance of both mental health and performance, the more likely we are to hear that integration language in them.
And I think one of the other big pieces of that, you know, we'll sit in on interviews and then chat afterwards. And a lot of what we connect on is, where did we hear that passion? And where do we think that particular applicant not would just best fit, but how each of us can really contribute to the growth of that person. So how would we be able to structure things or structure ideas or talk to this person or work with this person in such a way to really help them build the things that that may have come through that can be improved, that can really contribute to sort of both sides and contribute to the development of that applicant as a professional. So a lot of those conversations are about, how can we be most effective with this student? How can this program work best for this individual?
And I know both of us really think beyond just their matriculation through a program. Most of us, most of the interviews, when we get excited, we're going, can you imagine how this person is going to contribute once they're out there as a professional in the world? We can see it and feel it because they've been able to convey to us what their passion is, how they want to impact their profession, and then to some degree, how matriculating through our programs is going to help them do that. So we get excited about their future. We're not going to be around forever. We're trying to help ensure that there are really professional, well-educated folks out there doing the work that we love to do.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Cox and Dr. Castillo, for joining me today. And for all the applicants, thank you again for watching this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to email admissions@uws.edu, or you can just call us 800-641-5641, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.